Well, there's a lot going on in the world right now, and today we are talking about why what's happening inside of the Department of Government Efficiency with Elon Musk is a old trick from the corporate playbook. I'm Melissa Franks, and I am your on-call COO. I am an expert in all things growth, scaling, and optimization in business. And the one thing you may not know about me is for over 25 years, I worked in some of the largest corporations in the world. And I was kind of an internal corporate raider, if you know what that phrase is. I'm kind of harking back to the 1980s, the olden days. And I built my career the last 10 or 15 years on many of the tactics that Elon Musk is actually employing today inside of the government. And I got the results that those tactics are supposed to do. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time here today explaining exactly what's going on from a business perspective and why it's not so uncommon. Now, I get it. Everybody is incredibly upset that a private citizen that's actually a foreign national has come into the government and has literally shaken everything up, locking doors, changing names, cutting off funding. It's disruptive and it's attention getting. And there are a ton of news outlets out there right now that are saying, this is shock and awe. They're just trying to distract us from what's actually going on and exhaust us and all things. Listen, I would love to give them credit for that level of sophistication and strategy. That's just simply not what's happening. And here's why. Yesterday, an article came out that said, Elon Musk is sleeping on the floor of his office. And he is. And you want to know why he is? Because that's how he operates. There have been multiple books written about Elon Musk. There are multiple people that have 8- and 9-figure businesses that basically go around the globe and talk about their time working closely with Elon Musk. And here is the truth of the matter. Elon coined a process and a phrase, a leadership principle that's called sleeping at the bottleneck. Sleeping at the bottleneck. And that literally means that when they were building the first Tesla automobile, everybody was on site. Everybody basically lived in the office, and Elon literally would go from person to person, department to department, to wherever the bottleneck was, wherever things had broken down, where things weren't working, where a problem needed to be solved. And he would go insert himself there. And when he needed to, literally in somebody's cubicle, he'd sleep on the floor. He'd sleep there until it was resolved, right? He would take a cat nap and get up and start working on it again. Elon was relentless in removing obstacles, solving problems, and would literally take the best and brightest from all over the place and scramble them together to address the problem at hand. This is his blueprint for explosive, disruptive, billionaire growth. And it's well documented. So when we started to see that he was taking on a government role, the very first thing that I said was, well, here we go again. We know exactly what this guy does. We know how he plays. He's so predictable. And guess what, folks? He's doing exactly what he's always done. Always done. Now, that's not to say you shouldn't be upset about it, but what that is to say is let's understand what's actually happening. So I started this podcast by saying, I've done exactly what he's done. And it's true. As soon as I started watching what was happening in all of these federal agencies, I was like, I know what he's doing. And this, I don't know what the actual phrase is for this, but what I coined it as when I did it in corporate was break it until somebody screams, literally. And the one example that I will give you is we were inside of a failing business and I was called in to do exactly what Elon is doing. Cut expenses at all costs. Find all of the efficiencies, including if you need to eliminate departments and lay people off. And I absolutely went into that organization with a machete, not a scalpel, because that was my remit. And also, nobody knew what I was doing. The CEO knew what I was doing, nobody else. And I started going into nooks and crannies and corners. And one of the places I went to was our print center, because I realized that we were spending 8 figures a year physically printing and distributing things. We would print them in one location and mail them out. And these weren't documents that were going to clients. These were internal reports. And as I did a little bit more digging and fact-finding, I realized that there were tens of thousands of these reports. And the printing costs and the shipping costs and the labor associated with all of that was astronomical. And so what I did is I stopped all of them. One day, we went from printing everything to printing nothing, literally. And this was a big big business. This was a $7 billion business whose goal was to get to 10. And like I said, it was failing because its expenses were outweighing its revenue. And I stopped it all. Some of this stuff had been getting printed since the 1970s. And friends, this was like the 2010s where we were, the teens. And I waited and I waited and I waited. Would you like to know how many reports came back online? 20. And they came back online in a digital format. We cut 8 figures of annual spend from the budget by breaking it until somebody screamed. And I did that everywhere. I shut off applications. I closed departments like one by one. And I was like a quiet stealth ninja in the business because I was looking for bloat. I was looking for bureaucracy that was not serving the mission. I was looking for excess. And in the end, it didn't actually save the company because as much as I could cut, it still wasn't enough. The business model was failing and it just was what it was. But what Elon is doing right now is exactly what every single corporation in the world does when they get themselves into expense trouble. Now, just because it's a best practice doesn't mean it's the right practice. And I'm sharing this specifically here to explain that this is just a business practice. The conversation that we need to have as Americans is our government a business or not? Because if we want to run our government like a business, then some of these principles, like the one that I just described, where you break it until it screams, are things that we should implement. Because they do ensure that there are checks and balances. They do ensure that there's efficiency. However, if government is in fact not a business and is a social service, then we need a different playbook. We need a different set of best practices. We need a different way to measure and control efficiency. And in the government, that's called oversight. And so while corporate principles from the business world could absolutely help the government become more efficient, the question becomes, is the efficiency changes that are necessary, do they need to occur in the agencies or in the oversight committees? Because one would actually wager if there's already a construct in place to ensure that there is efficiency, aka the oversight committees, then perhaps where the inefficiency lies is not in the agency, but it's with the committee itself. This is a very complex conversation, and the purpose of this video today was just to explain that all that is happening right now in the government is that a business person is applying business principles to things that are likely not actually businesses. So the last thing that I will leave you with, and this is the question that I have open and I haven't quite yet answered myself because it requires a whole bunch of research, is, are these agencies businesses? Are they actually generating money, revenue, and spending it? Is there cash flow in and out? And is the in because the government allocated budget, or is the in because they actually transactionally are doing something? And I would wager that unlike a nonprofit, which actually does something to get money in, even if it's donations, in this case, all that it is the transfer of finances from point A to point B in order to deliver something. And if that is the case, then in fact, this is not a business. And we need to be looking at how we govern and find efficiencies and provide oversight in a different way. I hope this was helpful. If you want to continue to look at things that are happening in the political and current events landscape through a business lens, stay here. This is going to be something new that I do. And until next time, do some research and figure out what's really going on, friends.